I'm Gavin, and this is MLS Fantasy Picks.
Before we get into round 29 picks, here's a quick round 28 recap. A decent week. I ended with 89 points for round 28. I had a week rank of 741, and my overall rank is now 31. My budget increased from 198.3 million to 200.5 million. Hit the 200 mark. Looking at round 28, what went right? Well, Moreira coming off my bench, I was going to take a 6 last week. I needed it. The messy cap was the look with this 12, and then Wagner got me a 10, and falling back on the Seattle D worked out. Hasregan got me an 8, and Fry got me a 7. What didn't go so great? Mihailovic with the 2, a dud there, and then Rusnak with the 4. But overall, pretty happy with the week. And looking at the Champions League, I'm currently in 103rd out of 200, so I'm probably not going to win, but I was happy I just made the Champions League at all this year. And looking at our MLS Fantasy Picks Open League, shout out to Man Bear Pigs with 108 points. Solid picks all around, as well as a good play with Orjano, Acosta, and Cucho, and of course, Yaboa. Looking at where things stand end of the season here, as we only got a few weeks left, it's anyone's league. I'm only ahead right now by 11 points, and it's just a close table here at the top. Especially after this double game week, anything could change. And looking at our head-to-head league, it was a very exciting round in the quarterfinals. So Tay had a close victory over Saka by 3 points, Tolkien with the strong win over Soccer Data, and a huge victory with the Weebie-Jeebies over Miko. So with my matchup against Sound of the Loris, it ended as a tie, 89-89. So I actually had to look up in the rules. So if we hop over to how to play here, and we scroll down to the league, so your head-to-head league. So if teams are tied for the same amount of league points, then the team with the highest total team value will be ranked first. So as I said, my team value is 200.5 million. So if Sound of the Loris, if you're out there watching this, feel free to comment. Let me know what your rank was to see if this is legit, if that's how they ended up picking us. So close call there, but I ended up on top, I guess, because of the team value. So if we hop back over to the head-to-head league and see how things look. Moving into the semifinals. So we've got Tay versus Tolkien in MLS Fantasy Picks with the strong Weebie-Jeebies. Good luck, everyone. All right, enough of that. Let's hop into round 29. As always, looking at our key considerations for the round. So as I said before, this is going to be another huge double game week. A lot of teams with double homes, mixed double home and away, and then some away teams as well. I will say there are no teams on a bye. It's just Chicago and SKC. They're both teams with just single games over the week. And as always, be sure to keep an eye out on your injuries, reds, and yellow cards. Especially on this double game week, there are a lot of players we would normally look at. You may still want to look at, even though they're on yellow card watch. The only risk is if they do get the yellow on that first game, they'll miss the second game, so missing out on the benefit of the double game week. So saying that, let's hop over to our picks for week 29. As always, getting started with keepers. So I really didn't like keepers too much this week. For the front end of a keeperoo, I do like Kalina. Charlotte's at home both of their games, and they have decent matchups. So Charlotte versus Chicago and Montreal, you would definitely like those Charlotte defenses there. So I've got him on the front end of the keeperoo. Back end, not a huge fan of the matchups. No, I don't think Portland is known for their defense or will keep clean sheets, but I feel like their matchups were decent against Austin and Dallas, and they're at home for both of them. You could also look at Lloris. I think they've got a decent second matchup. I think they're mixed home and away. LAFC is at home against St. Louis, who have been doing well offensively, scoring plenty. And then they've got a second matchup against SKC. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the fallback options. So maybe we even stick it out with Kalina, see how he does against Chicago and Montreal. Not a whole lot of options I'm liking this week for keepers. And moving on over to defense, a couple of these guys I think are on yellow card watch. So Alba, they've got, I guess, double away, Columbus and Toronto. It's not the greatest of matchups, but, Miami are still Miami. I feel like it's worth the shout. And then Wagner as well. It looks like they're also double away, Orlando and Columbus. But it's Wagner. Hopefully he lays low that first game, doesn't do anything too crazy, as the Union need him, and they need as many points as possible to make the playoffs. So I hope he keeps his cool. I'll probably be going with Wagner this week, even though he is on yellow card watch. And then, of course, you like Columbus. I like Columbus this week. They're a double home versus Miami and Philly. So there is the risk there of rotation, as that Columbus, team is so deep in terms of how many different options they have, all the different lineups. But I do like Moreira. I do like Camacho. And Moreira even, I think, got an assist last week. I also like Houston. Mikel Dos Santos, he's good for his floor there. Looks like they're against New England and St. Louis. Looks like one home, one away. So I like those matchups. I like Dos Santos this week. And then finishing off with Lennon. I didn't really say Lennon's name too often this season, but they are double home. They've got some more options on the attack, and he could be a bit more of a viable fantasy option, especially with matchups against Montreal and Red Bull. And moving on over to midfield, it's Evander. He's got to be in your team this week. He's definitely my MLS Fantasy MVP for the season. I know we were all a bit not worried necessarily, but unsure if Evander would be the star that he was hyped to be. And at least, from a non-fantasy and fantasy perspective, I am very impressed with him and definitely see him as, one of the, contender for league MVP this year. He's got great matchups, double home against Austin and Dallas. He's got to be in your team this week. And then, of course, Ricky Puig, double game week against Colorado and Austin. Great matchups. I like Puig a lot. Mihailovic, yes, he had a dud last week, but decent matchups against LA Galaxy and Seattle. I feel like it was just an off week for Mihailovic. He had some close chances last week. I see him rebounding this week. Feel like he's a good pick. And then, of course, Costa. He's not the standout that we are used to in terms of fantasy, but I like him this week. One away, one home. He's clicking with Orjano. Speaking of Orjano, I think he's also a decent shout. Even if you double up on them, I think that's still a good look. He also had some good points last week. Carlos Gil. Gil is probably one of the main or only options I would look at from the Revolution from a fantasy perspective. They're playing against Houston with no Hector Herrera and a DC team that has let in plenty of goals. Some other guys here that I'm probably not too huge on, but good options. Bogusz, he's been pulled recently. Just be sure to look out for lineups. Torres from Orlando. Whenever I pick him, he flops, so I usually stay away from him. But if he works for you, take a look at Torres. I would call out, Gauld this week. Definitely looks good. I think Vancouver's on a double home, but I'm pretty sure he's injured if you were thinking about Gauld. As well as I said, Hector Herrera, known for his floor. I also think he has a bit of an injury at the moment. One player I may be looking at, even though there are so many good options at midfield this week, is Moreno from Portland. Sort of doubling up with that Evander Moreno Portland look there. Like I said before, double home, good matchups, might be worth it. And finishing off with our forwards. I feel like this is pretty chalk, but there's a reason, especially on a double game week. We know Messi, double away, you got to have Messi. Peck, I think, really popped off on that last double game week, and luckily I did have him. So I'll probably look to keep Peck in again this week. For my strikers, not sure if I'll have him on the bench or on the field. What I normally run on a double game week is an auto route, so I'll have 2 defensive scrubs there. And the scrubs I'll be using this week, I didn't call it out earlier, would be Lowe from Philly and then Barrial from Cincy, as they're both no longer in the league. But back to forwards. So I feel like these guys are chalk. Cucho double home. I'm curious if they rotate him. Maybe I'll look to go away from Cucho if he's not starting that first game. Though that did bite me in the last double game week as he came on and scored as Cucho does. Rodriguez from Portland really turned it on last week without Evander. Though I would be probably looking to double up with Evander and Moreno. Maybe I don't look at Rodriguez as well in case they do flop. Suarez from Miami, I think, is on yellow card watch, so keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, Bouanga's always an option. He's got good matchups against St. Louis, who let in some goals, and as well as SKC, little revenge Open Cup match. And then another flyer pick if you want a bit of a differential. I don't know how huge of a differential it is, but Brian White from Vancouver. So he stepped up while Gauld has been out, got a goal last week. I believe Vancouver is on a double home. Let me check my notes. Yep, they are. So I feel like that's a good option for striker as well against Seattle and Minnesota. Seattle may be a bit tougher. Maybe there's more games, bit of a rivalry. But yeah, I like all of those options at forward. Finishing out while we're here, captain options. Messi is an option as always. But I am thinking, do you go with Evander? Possibly. I think Evander's got great matchups this week, and his ceiling is pretty high. So yeah, toss up between Evander and Messi. Going to be a game time decision for me come this Wednesday. All right, everyone. So that wraps it up for me this week. Thanks for sticking in there, for watching. It has been quite an exciting MLS fantasy season. So I think this is our last double game week of the year. So going to be an exciting one. And as always, good luck.